Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. That's ziprecruiter.com/zip. ziprecruiter.com/zip.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Well, out of the gate, for those of you on my stations in Georgia, we've got some breaking news that just hit the wire that has national impact. The governor of Georgia just announced, 300 Georgia National Guard troops are going to be deployed to Washington, D.C. to help the feds keep the peace in D.C. This is coming from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, confirmed by Governor Kemp's office. Literally, the date line on the news is 12:02 p.m. So happening now, my friends, the governor of Georgia deploying 300 Georgia National Guard troops to D.C. That's not where we need to begin today, though. I'll try to get more details on this. I'll see what details I can get on this. And the governor of Georgia is sending 300 troops to Washington. Other states have done the same now. But the news of the day is the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the jobs numbers. Well, the tariffs are working. They're doing exactly what I told you they would do. We have lost 75,000 manufacturing jobs. Remember, the tariffs were designed to save manufacturing jobs. We've actually lost 75,000 manufacturing jobs. We have a net total gain in jobs of 20,000, which actually means we will get, if not 1, 2 rate increases. Look, we've been wanting the Fed to cut the rates. We've had this weird dichotomy. You understand that you cut the rates when the economy is slowing. So we've had this wild dichotomy of the Trump administration telling us the economy was going gangbusters, best economy in the world, best economy ever, so the Fed needs to cut rates. But you don't cut rates when the economy is going gangbusters because it causes the economy to overheat, which generates inflation. You only cut rates when the economy is slowing down. The economy is slowing down, so now the Fed will cut rates. The president now says, don't pay attention to the numbers. The real numbers will come in a year. And by the way, these numbers will be revised. They were expecting 75,000 jobs. That was the forecast. Instead, we get 22,000. It's a real slowdown. The July forecast, you should know, was revised upward by 6,000 jobs, but also a loss of 13,000 in June. We actually lost jobs in June. Healthcare led all sectors, 31,000 jobs. Social assistance contributed 16,000. Wholesale trade and manufacturing both saw declines. 12,000, but overall manufacturing, so when you revise the numbers for June and July, since Donald Trump deployed tariffs in April, U.S. manufacturers have shed 75,000 jobs. Now, let me explain again the data and why it frustrates all of you. The data is actually based on surveys of employers, like polling surveys of employers. Now, here's the catch. When Gallup calls you
You don't have to answer the phone. When Gallup calls you, it's optional as to whether or not you participate. When the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls an employer, they're required by law to participate. However, a lot of it's done by email now. And I can tell you, because I'm one of them, where I get the emails and I don't see them, they go to spam. So then I get a certified letter in the mail telling me that I am in legal jeopardy if I don't comply with the law. Go to this URL, scan the QR code, whatever, and fill out the survey. And then I do, and it takes a little while. This happens a lot. And so the data rolls in over time. That's why June can be revised down now. We lost 13,000 jobs. This is not a strong economy when you're losing those jobs. Remember, we actually thought that the June numbers were pretty good. Now, here's the problem. The president fired the head of Bureau of Labor Statistics. I told you all yesterday when I was leaving, like in the final minutes of the program yesterday, I said today was going to be comedy gold. And it is, by the way. It is absolutely comedy gold. It's comedy gold because if the numbers were good, the Democrats were going to say, how can you trust the numbers? This is Donald Trump's guy. They could be rigging the numbers. And the media, of course, if the numbers were too good, the media would be saying, we don't know about this. You know, Donald Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. These numbers could be rigged. We have doubts. But if the numbers were not good, they were going to say, see, this is Donald Trump's own person. And the Trump administration would be like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the numbers. The numbers will come. Sure enough, Trump today is like, you can't pay attention to these numbers. The economy's going great. Everything will be fine. Howard Lutnick was on CNBC this morning saying, we got the strongest economy in the world. If you got the strongest economy in the world, you're not going to be losing. Here's the problem, and I don't mean to be flippant, and I don't mean to be insulting, and I know some of you will take it that way because I'm critical of tariffs and the president in this regard. The president in his first term had the most remarkable economy. He's now doing in his second term the exact opposite of everything he did in his first term. And he's getting all of the results that I said he would get, that economist said he would get. Y'all, I'm not an economist. I had macro and microeconomics in college, and that was the extent of it. But I've read Milton Friedman. I've read Hayek. I've read economics in one lesson. I know how the economy works. We overcomplicate some things that are simple. We simplify some things that are overcomplicated. But at the end of the day, it's very, very simple. A tariff is a tax on you and on American producers. It's not paid by foreign governments. It is sometimes absorbed by foreign companies who lower their prices so that what the import tax equals is what the price was beforehand. That can only go on for so long. I know what I'm talking about here. And you can say this is going to refigure and rebuild American manufacturing, but not for T-shirts and not for socks and not for underwear. And we already do massive, complicated manufacturing. But a lot of the components that are made abroad and brought here. The president insists that every little widget be made inside the United States. And it's just not done that way. The world is more complicated than that. The world has always been more complicated than that. And maybe not in the mercantilist days. And it seems like they want to go back to the mercantilist days. And so this is the result of an economy that is now rather tariffed. And that's unfortunate because I could tell you how this is going to play out. Here's Milton Friedman. If you've never heard this before, there's been a resurgence. And by the way, this is my hope for humanity. There's been a massive resurgence in people interested in Milton Friedman of late. Listen to this.
Look at this lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. This black center, we call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen with the help of the British government. This brass ferrule, I haven't the slightest idea where it came from, or the yellow paint, or the paint that made the black lines, or the glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and induced them to cooperate to make this pencil? There was no commissar sending out orders from some central office. It was the magic of the price system, the impersonal operation of prices that brought them together and got them to cooperate to make this pencil so that you could have it for a trifling sum.
That was Milton Friedman. By the way, that was a quite a long time ago that he did that. But he's right. Let's just take the rubber for the pencil eraser. The rubber does typically come. He said Malaya. It's now Malaysia. It typically does come from Malaysia. We typically don't actually make the raw ingredient used for the erasers for pencils in this country. We import it. There's an import tax on Malaysia of, I think, 25%. So your pencil price goes up, or the importer eats the cost. And what's happening right now is, and this gets to the labor report data, what a lot of employers are doing is they're simply not paying higher wages. They're not hiring, and in some cases, they're laying off. What's really happening is they're just not hiring. They're not really laying off right now. In June, some people, 13,000 people, lost their jobs, and most of those were in manufacturing. Why? Because the manufacturers' raw materials are rarely made inside the United States. We have a globally integrated economy. And now the Trump administration moves the goalposts and says, well, but we're going to start rebuilding all of that stuff here. But some of those materials you can't. We don't grow sufficient bananas in the United States for every American who eats bananas to eat bananas. They're imported. And as I said at the time, the president should have, but Howard Lutnick dissuaded him, the president should have not taxed things like coffee and bananas. My wife and I realize this is somewhat pretentious for some of you, but there's a company called Rev Coffee Roasters in Smyrna, Georgia. We buy 5-pound bags of whole bean coffee, and we have a coffee pot that grinds it and makes coffee. It's good coffee. We were paying $100 for a 5-pound bag of coffee, and now it's, I think, $175 the other day. Now, that includes tax. It's at $162, I think. And basically went from $98 without tax to $162 with tax. It's absurd. But it's imported from Central America. And yeah, you can say it's pretentious. I like my coffee, and I have the means to pay for it. Brazilian coffee has skyrocketed. Colombian coffee. We don't grow coffee in this country at the scale needed to satisfy people. And so everybody's coffee prices have gone up, not just my whole beans. Your coffee has gone up too. To the extent your coffee hasn't gone up, it's because the people who make the coffee aren't hiring people right now, and they're not paying higher wages. And that's reflected in the data here. That's what's going on. There's no reason to hide from it, no reason to be angry with it. That's just the data. And that data now comes from the Trump administration because they fired the Biden-appointed head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so they have to own the data now. That was why he shouldn't have fired that person. Because now he owns the whole thing. He owns the data. But there is an upside to this. We're going to get at least 2 rate cuts now, according to Bank of America, Goldman Sachs as well. Thinking we're going to get some significant rate cuts that will stimulate the economy. And here's the catch. If the U.S. Supreme Court rules that his global tariffs are unconstitutional, which is actually pretty likely, and we get 2 rate cuts, Donald Trump is going to go into next year with a massively exploding economy
because the tariffs will have gone away, interest rates will have been cut, the economy will explode as a result. It will be on fire, and Trump will get the credit for it. He's the luckiest man alive. Butler should have shown you that. And for Democrats, you can rejoice today that, oh my gosh, we only gained 22,000 jobs, rooting against the American economy after 4 years of you guys wrecking the economy. To the Trump supporters, I would just tell you, remember the first term, lowest black unemployment, or lowest unemployment for black families, lowest unemployment for Hispanics, lowest unemployment for women. He was committed to the free market. He didn't do a massive tariff regime globally. The free market was on fire. If the Supreme Court tosses the tariffs, we get back to the policies of the first term. Simply because the tariffs go away, the economy explodes, Trump gets the credit, and Democrats, maybe they don't have as good a midterm election as they think they're going to have right now, given the data. Greetings. Did you watch the football game last night? I thought it was, so it starts, and the Eagles, they take out the Cowboys quarterback, and then there's a spitting match. The Eagles now insist that Dak spat first. It's the Han Solo Greedo situation all over again. The refs ousted the Eagles player. The Cowboys fans, because the Philadelphia Eagles team color is green, so they started a trending hashtag on Twitter, 11 green, such and such is thrown on the field. What they were throwing on the WNBA courts. So that was what they were calling the Eagles players dressed in green. What the perfect way to start football season back. I knew that. I mean, let's just all be honest here. Let's all be honest here. And I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Every one of you who paid any attention whatsoever, you already knew the Cowboys were going to lose this game. I'm sorry that when was the last time the Cowboys won? Was with what? No, Custard lost against the Indians. I don't know. It hadn't been good for the poor Cowboys. And now you got Micah Parsons going to Green Bay. Did I mention I'm an owner? I saw a great line from his agent the other day that his player's job was to catch quarterbacks and his job was to catch commas for his player. I sent that quote to my agent and said, catch more commas for me. Football's back. I'm going to go to a Braves game. Braves, you got to beat the Mariners. Come on. I'm going to go to the Braves game tonight. I'm going to play golf tomorrow with a buddy whose wife is about to have a baby. This is his last hurrah to be out of the house for a while. And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit my butt on my rocking chair on my front porch and I'm going to watch football all weekend long. It's going to be wonderful. Now, Eden Pure. You can go to EdenPureDeals.com and get an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack. Save $200. Get them for less than $200. EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. What you do is you go to the website, you'll see a discount code box, and you put in ERIC3, ERICK, the number 3, no space. You get 3 of them, you save $200. They're an air purifier, so they get rid of dust, they get rid of pollen, all the stuff floating in the air they trap. They kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses, and then they produce ozone that floats into the air, touches odor particles, and wipes out the odor particles. No odor can stand up to it. It's small, you can hold it in your hand, keep it in your travel bag. You can plug it up with a USB cord. You can plug it directly into the wall, and it packs well up. Get 3 of them. They're small. Put them downstairs, upstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV. Use them in your car, wherever you need them to wipe out odors. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3, EdenPureDeals.com. I am unsure, other than people want to complain. And, I some of you get mad at me because I'm critical, like on the tariff stuff. But the upset over the Department of War name change. I don't know if you've seen this. The number of people are like, we are no longer respected in the world. No one takes Trump seriously. Oh, they take him seriously. He's the president of the United States with one of the largest nuclear arsenals on the planet. They take him very seriously. They may not like him, but they take him seriously. But this Department of War thing, so the Department of Defense was a combination. You had the Navy and the Army originally. It was a Department of War, but then you add in the Air Force, the Space Force, and everything else. And Congress actually designated it the Department of Defense. It's an act of Congress, so the president can't actually change the name of the Department of Defense without Congress getting involved. So what he's done is a secondary name. You know what the secondary name of the Department of Defense has been? The Pentagon. I saw it actually yesterday in the Politico headline, President to change name of Pentagon to Department of War. No, he's not doing that at all. He's not changing the name of the Pentagon to the Department of War. He's just saying it's a secondary name, just like we call it the Pentagon. You know, Don Rumsfeld, when he was the Secretary of Defense, he had authored memos at his time. He was the Chief of Staff in the White House. He was the Secretary of Defense. He had been involved in private business, and he always said one of his pet peeves, and he was actually lecturing me on this because I do it all the time, was stop saying the White House. He wouldn't let the people around him refer to the Pentagon or the White House. Why, you might ask? In his words, and I quote, the White House is an inanimate object incapable of making a decision. He's got a point. Now, you and I both know what I mean when I say the White House or the Pentagon, and everyone else does. Rumsfeld, it was a pet peeve of his. He wouldn't let people around him say the White House or the Pentagon because they are inanimate objects incapable of making decisions. It is the Trump administration, not the White House. The Trump administration. The Trump administration is doing a secondary name, and who the hell cares, honestly? I mean, I'm perfectly willing to complain about things from the Trump. I drive you crazy sometimes with what some of you think is picking nits, and I'm like, who cares? I mean, we want them to engage in war, but now, there is a fundamental dynamic here you do have to keep in mind, though. There's been this National Conservative Conference, the NatCons in Washington, D.C. They're very unhappy with the Trump administration. That's the buzz out of there. It wasn't well attended. A lot of the people weren't well received because these people banked on Donald Trump, and he was, going to pull us from abroad back home? He was some sort of isolationist, and that hasn't been the case. He's bombed Iran. He's recommitted to Ukraine. He's doubled down on funding NATO. He's willing to invade Mexico if need be. He's been having secret talks, by the way, with the Taiwanese about backing them up against China. Turns out, while we were in Alaska meeting with Putin, we were also in Alaska meeting with the Taiwanese about the defense of their island against China. The Trump administration has bolstered forces in the Philippines to help the Filipinos deal with the Chinese. He's not the isolationist a lot of the NatCons hoped. He's also doubled down on helping Israel, something that many of them also didn't particularly support. And now he's changed the rules of engagement in dealing with drug dealers. Listen, I had lots of complaints about George W. Bush's domestic policy. I was not on radio then, but I was writing in his second term at Red State and criticized the Bush administration's domestic policy significantly and regularly, and never felt like I was under this massive pressure to shut up about it. Now I criticize the Trump administration domestic policy, and a lot of people get really, really angry. People who weren't sensitive about Bush, they're very sensitive now. It's very tribal now in ways it wasn't then. But I've got criticisms. I had criticisms of No Child Left Behind and Medicare Part D and his immigration reforms and Harriet Miers on the Supreme Court and things like that. I've got criticisms of Trump on tariffs. Here's where I don't have any criticisms on Trump, where I did have criticisms for Bush. Foreign policy. This is one of the most grown-up and mature foreign policy administrations we have seen. He's very realistic, and long have I advocated, including back to the Bush administration, the Monroe Doctrine. We as a nation abandoned the Monroe Doctrine.
And when Bush was president, I wrote a piece at redstate.com, and I said, well, I understand why we're abroad, why we're fighting, all these things. I think that we as a nation have been incapable of multitasking in reasserting the Monroe Doctrine, because the Chinese back in the early 2000s started buying up mines in South America, buying up mineral rights and mineral wealth, asserting the Chinese military into Central and South America. The Russians themselves were also engaging in Central and South America. And I was writing back during the Bush administration that we had dropped the ball and we were losing the plot when it came to the Western Hemisphere. And here we are now. The Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians have been collaborating with the Venezuelans. Literally, the Chinese, Russians, and Iranians have had naval vessels in Venezuela working on naval techniques with the Venezuelans. Did you know that? I've talked about it. If you're new to the program, I might be the only one who's been talking about it, but it's documented. It's real. You can search and find it yourself. I'm not your Google, but I assure you it exists. The Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, and the Venezuelans have been collaborating in the Caribbean. The Brazilians have been collaborating. The Chinese have been buying up mineral wealth and mines in much of South America. They control the entry point and exit point to the Panama Canal. And they've been setting up ties with the Mexicans. Our largest trading partner outside of Canada is Mexico, and the Chinese are trying to shift the Mexicans in their favor. Meanwhile, the Mexicans and the Venezuelans, they've been flooding our border with drugs. And thankfully, this president is changing the rules of engagement. You see, the way it has always worked, and it didn't matter who was in the White House, Democrat or Republican, the way it has always worked is that drug trafficking was considered criminal activity. And so the drug traffickers were interdicted, they were indicted, they were brought into this country, and they were placed in jail. And we used the legal system, and we gave them due process rights. The drug traffickers are, to an extent, a front for the Chinese and for the Maduro regime in Venezuela. I'm sorry, I don't care about giving due process rights to the drug lords of South America. Neither does the President of the United States. It's a grown-up foreign policy. These people are at war with us. One of the problems that I oftentimes have, and by the way, this is part of the post-9/11 mindset in this country more than at any other time. We are so overwhelmed with the post-9/11 world and having our troops overseas for so long and dealing with Afghanistan and Iraq and death tolls and like. We are loath to want to go to war with anyone. And that's one of the problems with the NatCon conference is they don't want to go to war with anyone. They want to come home, set up high walls, be isolationist. Trump's never been that way. His entirety of his foreign policy has shown him not to be the isolationist they thought he was. He's more restrained. He wants it to be in America's foreign policy interest, not Europe's foreign policy interest. There are times I wish he would push further and engage more with Ukraine, where he's headed in that direction. But we never should have treated the drug lords and the drug cartels as passive civilian criminal activity. It's active, it is malicious, it is militarized. They are our enemy, and we should slaughter them. And you've got a bunch of Americans who can't wrap their minds around this changed engagement. Where are the bright lines? Where does this end? What if he starts blowing up ships because they refuse to pay the tariff? That's such a stupid hyperbole from people with Trump derangement syndrome. Literally, someone asked me that the other day. Where does this end? What are the limits of this? Will he start blowing up ships that are defying the tariffs? I'm sorry, but the commerce power and the regulatory power on tariffs and taxation is different from this. And if you can't see that, that's on you, not me. The drug lords aren't criminals. They're monsters who we should be slaughtering because they're slaughtering your next door neighbor. They don't deserve our due process standards. They deserve missiles launched at them, bullets fired at them. And the Trump administration is doing it. Good for them. Nicolas Maduro's regime has done military jet flyover American naval vessels in the Caribbean in the last 24 hours. They've gone low and fast, trying to signal that they will respond to the American Navy.
If Maduro wishes to escalate, let him. Nicolas Maduro runs a rogue regime in South America that we no longer recognize. We have a bounty on his head. We know where he lives. You think a bunker buster can't root him out in Venezuela like it did the Iranian nuclear program? Nicolas Maduro is an enemy of the United States. Nicolas Maduro does not wish to attack us with his soldiers because he knows that they cannot stand up to us, so he attacks us with drugs. He kills your neighbors and your neighbors' children with drugs. We shouldn't be treating him as a criminal. This is not Manuel Noriega. We're not going to go in with the military, round him up, and bring him home to try him. We're going to kill him. The Noriega one is a perfect example of this, where we decided to treat it as a quasi-military police action. We went in and rounded the guy up. We arrested him. We indicted him. We tried him. Just launch a missile. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to this redefinition of the rules of engagement. And let's be really honest here. A lot of the people who are really upset about it would be perfectly fine if it was another president who did it. If it was a Bush, an Obama, a Biden, a Clinton, you name it, they would be totally fine with this redefinition of the rules of engagement. They just don't like Donald Trump. They don't trust Donald Trump, and they don't like Hegseth. They don't much care for Rubio anymore, so they don't want this done by this particular administration. I don't care which administration does it. Those did not have the gumption to do it, the testicular fortitude to do it. Donald Trump does, and it's a good idea. Kill the drug lords. Bomb their facilities. We know many of them have underground labs. Go find the underground labs and drop some missiles to blow up the underground labs. They're at war with us. We should be at war with them. If I have a real complaint about the administration when it comes to foreign policy, it's clear the Chinese are at war with us. We should be at war with them, at least in a Cold War escalation with the Chinese, and we seem to be dancing around the issue. You know, by the way, what I find interesting, just as a tangent here, how interesting it is that during the 1980s, during the Cold War with the Soviet Union, there were lots and lots and lots of American movies where the Russians were the bad guys. The Soviets were the bad guys. Red Dawn, The Hunt for Red October, The Cardinal and the Kremlin was a great book. I think they were turning it into a movie at one point. It got outdated. There are so many great movies and books, not just from the Tom Clancy realm, but so many where the Soviets were the bad guys. And then after the Cold War, after we won, there were a number of movies that were released that reiterated how bad the Soviets were and we were the good guys. Notice not a single movie comes out anymore where the Chinese are the bad guys. We're in a Cold War with China, and Hollywood can't propagandize because they want access to the Chinese market. That's how nefarious this is with China. We should be treating the Chinese as the enemy. Our propagandists in Hollywood, our cultural icons, they should be treating the Chinese as the enemy because they are. And the Trump administration should be treating them that way as well. We come close with tariffs, but not as close as I would go. At least we've changed the rules of engagement to kill the drug cartels who are an intermediary between the Chinese Cold War and us. I have no complaints with the Trump administration blowing up that ship leaving Venezuela. It was filled with drug lords with their drugs headed this way. Stop thinking about this drug war as a criminal enterprise, treat it as a war, and kill the bad guys. Greetings, conversationalists. I'd give you the phone number. We are without a call screener today. My apologies. However, if you go to, you can send a voice memo. We've done this before. You can send a voice memo. You can email it to contact@ewerickson.com. And you can get on the air that way if you want to make a point. Use your voice memo app. We can do it that way today. How about that? Philip and Fisher can vet them for me while I'm sitting here. Now, Bari Weiss, I mentioned this yesterday. CBS News is one of the most hostile and liberal news outlets this country has ever seen. For years, Dan Rather turned that newsroom more and more to the left. Famously booted after the made-up story about George W. Bush's National Guard service. And they got Gayle King and others. It's hyper-progressive there.
Nora O'Donnell, and you've got Margaret Brennan, who is the dimwit on the Sunday morning show, who just Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance run circles around that woman every time they're on. She's just not bright. And so Paramount is buying the Free Press from Bari Weiss, and the CBS newsroom is in an absolute meltdown that this woman, who, by the way, is a lesbian liberal. Think about that. A liberal lesbian is too far right for the newsroom at CBS. Why? Because one of Bari Weiss's claims to fame is that though she has her own political views, she is willing to embrace the views of other people, myself included. I mean, I'm an evangelical Christian who believes marriage is between a man and a woman, and Bari Weiss is wonderful. She's a great person. She's had me in the page of the Free Press. We've been on Bill Maher's show together. She's fantastic. We don't always agree with stuff. She is definitely to the left of me, but she's too far right for the newsroom at CBS News, who doesn't really even know her. And one of the things they wanted to do is they want to charge her with an expanded portfolio of editorial voices at CBS News. The news media is more interested in the narrative than the news. They're more interested in the story than truth. And they resent like hell having anyone come in who wants them to prioritize the truth. And I'll tell you, my advice to CBS, if they go down this road, and one of the things I think Bari Weiss will excel at is covering the stories that otherwise don't get covered, because the biggest bias in the media is not how they cover stories. It's what stories they refuse to cover. There's where your real bias is. The stories they refuse to cover, which she will make them cover, and that's a good thing. I got to tell you about Hillsdale College. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com, you can sign up for one of 40 classes from Hillsdale College. I really, really thought about signing Tim Kaine up for their class on the Federalist Papers, given his statements about the Declaration of Independence and the believing that our rights come from God. It's really wild to see progressives defend him. They could be disabused of the notion if they take a class from Hillsdale College on the founding of the Republic and the Constitution of the Federalist Papers, all of which are available for you to take for free. Each class is 30-minute video lectures, depending on the class you take, it depends on the number of episodes, but each episode's about 30 minutes. They're videos. They're engaging. They're entertaining. They make you smarter, and they're no charge to you. Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. Surely there's a topic that you're interested in. Hillsdale College has 40 of them to choose from. 40. From math to chemistry to philosophy to religion to literature to history, political science, they're all there. ericforhillsdale.com. Sign up with Hillsdale College today. Again, no charge to you. Improve your understanding of some topic you're interested in. ericforhillsdale.com.